So Phil Harris, Managing Director of Harris Real Estate. Phil, it's a pleasure to have you, one as a customer, so thank you for that, but secondly, as a real estateur extraordinaire inside of South Australia. I just wanted to have a bit of a chat about you, if that's okay. So Phil Harris, how did you get into real estate and why?
Real estate was plan B for me, so I never, so I didn't wake up, dreaming to be a real estate agent when I was older. I was fortunate that I hung around the tennis environment when I was a kid, so I was the same age as Leighton Hewitt, so I grew up, hoping to one day be a tennis player. That didn't work out for me for no other reason. I probably just wasn't good enough. That was, apart from not being talented enough or good enough, I was looking good. But no, so that was where I wanted to go. And as it turned out, just a friend of mine, his father suggested, why don't you give real estate a shot? And so I, like most people who get into the industry, I went around and applied for a few people, ended up getting basically an apprenticeship in real estate. And that's going back almost 20 years ago now. So so for me, I fell into it. It wasn't some strategic play that I'd come up with.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And real estate has been around for a long time. The evolution of real estate is one thing, but the different sales strategies that you've got to put in place. How do you create your personal brand and be strong in real estate? What's made you successful as you as an individual, as a real estateur?
Well, I think you hit it on the head. It is that personal brand. It's a lot. There's some things that have changed a lot in real estate. As I said, I've been doing it for 20 years, but so some certain things have changed. So there's you're building your own personal brand, whether it be through social media, digital products, those sorts of things. But there are still some fundamentals of real estate that haven't changed at all. But the best agents across the country and here in South Australia, they do have the strongest personal brands. And it doesn't sound sexy or cool, and it's not built on social media, but still the best agents have great personal brands, really through word of mouth marketing. That's still probably the number one driver for top performing agents. And it's one thing to focus on going out and trying to build a brand, but where good agents do it very well is they're focused on just being, first and foremost, being very good at what you do. And when you're exceptional at what you do, that's what leads to great word of mouth marketing and building that personal brand. And then you've got other tools that leverage off the back of that, like social media, digital, and those sorts of things. But it seems as though the number one criteria for personal brand is still just being world class at what you do.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you've moved then on from being an individual real estate agent to then opening Harris Real Estate.
Sure.
Now, as my memory serves me right, you started off on Glen Osmond Road, then you went to Rose Park, and now you're in Rundle Street,
Kenttown.
Kenttown. But you're not a traditional, if I can call it, the real estate agent with the office on the corner with all the little signs outside. What approach have you taken, and why have you changed the traditional approach?
Well, I think from day one, I looked at not just real estate agencies locally here in Adelaide, or even nationally for that matter. I spent a fair bit of time in the US as well, in terms of just looking at trends of what was happening in the real estate space. And the reality is, for most transactions now, rarely do people walk into a real estate office anymore to say, hey, I'm here to buy a home. Now, in certain marketplaces across the country that are hyper-local, you might get people walking in, but the reality is most consumers these days, probably 95% of people are buying property through their iPhone, which means gone are the days of having to have a shop front with window cards for the purpose of selling property. We're more about providing, great working spaces for our staff, wonderful online products, those sorts of things, so clients can engage with us online. But when they do come to see us, we've got, obviously, fantastic facilities that both our staff and our clients enjoy. So our approach now is, I would say, a very contemporary approach and very much pitched at the modern consumer as opposed to the traditional real estate model.
Gotcha. And obviously technology plays a significant part in that. So as a real estate agent, what's the expectation of technology for them and for you?
Well, I think probably what we've all wrestled with, particularly over, maybe the last 2 to 5 years, is actually getting not just salespeople, but your entire workforce completely mobile. So we've had that transition from, what we were operating before to now moving to completely cloud-based products. So, you know, our sales team and property management team, for example, they could literally work anywhere in the world off of an iPhone and an iPad. So that technology shift of not having to be office bound to access, you know, company servers and those sorts of things, those requirements have gone. So it just comes back to that philosophy of ours, which is where's the consumer at? Consumers want fast turnaround time. Consumers now, you know, gone are the days where, you know, a buyer or a vendor or a seller only contacts you between the hours of 9 and 5. It's a flexible environment now. So just as our consumers want to engage with us outside of normal business hours, we've got to make sure we've got technology and strategies that enable our staff to work outside of, you know, normal business hours as well.
But that also creates a challenging culture, doesn't it? Where you've got whether you've got contracts or people who own their own business and working for Harris Real Estate, you've got employees, you've got other shareholders inside of Harris. How do you build that communication culture with your team? And I'm thinking now specifically for the sales guys. How do you work them into a position of being really connected with Harris? And then what are some of the lessons that you've learned? Tell me some of the things that really haven't worked for you when it comes to communication.
Well, I mean, once again, like, it's a moving space, and technology is a huge enabler. You know, when an example for you be when I first started in real estate, we'd have a weekly sales meeting. We'd sit down with, you know, little office, 3 or 4 other salespeople, and we say, okay, Phil, 26 Smith Street, St. Mary's, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, 2 car parking, price guide. I mean, it was just death by meeting.
Yeah. And you look back now, it's ridiculous.
Ridiculous, but we say that, but there's still probably the vast majority of the industry is still operating like that. So in our organisation, we know that, you know, we've got 60 salespeople. They're listing about 150 homes per month. So for us to sit down on a weekly basis to take them out of their productive environments to get together for 2 hours every single Monday morning is just an utter waste of time.
Yes.
And so where that has shifted now is that various technology products now make that difference. So we use a product called Slack, which is our team communication program. Every single time somebody at Harris lists a property, every time they sell a property, every agent's getting notified with links to the photos and those sorts of things. So there's no requirement to catch up and talk through stock like we used to do. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so that communication platform for us enables us to no longer get together physically on a weekly basis, but our full sales team comes together on a monthly basis rather than doing it weekly. And then we've got other virtual kind of communication hangouts as well. So it's changed a lot from that perspective. But also, I mean, you've got serious performers in our group who are on very serious incomes, you know, selling 200 homes per year. To take that person out of their business for 2 to 3 hours to talk about 150 other just listed properties, it's of no relevance to them, and I'm costing that person money by taking them out of that environment. So I think where the workforce has certainly changed from our perspective, if we're not adding value to our stakeholders, which is our employees, everything we do is going to be based on adding value. If we're not adding value, why are we having that meeting? Why are we having that training session?
Gotcha, I understand. So now, I'll challenge that a bit in regards to then how do you then take that into a cultural space? So how do you maintain your values? You as a person, a high values oriented person, your business is based on values. How do you ensure that your values are threaded within your workspace?
Yeah, and it's quite timely. It's something we're really working on in the organisation at the moment. We've had a set of values since we started the organisation. We're looking at doing a reset at the moment. I think that, I mean, first and foremost, it starts with the leader, and it comes back to that personal brand. I always say with values to me is a lifestyle. It's not something that you kind of strap on when you walk into the office at 8 a.m. So my values that I have for my organisation, I don't try hard to have those values. So it's not like, okay, when I get to the office at 8, I'm going to have integrity from 8 o'clock to 7 p.m. And you know, so it's a lifestyle shift. And then in terms of how we integrate that into our team, we have awards, programs that we recognise around our values. We celebrate them at quarterly awards, half-yearly awards, annual awards, those sorts of things. And just constantly, I guess, trying to align our people through performance management and trying to link them back to our values and what we stand for.
And do you think that makes a difference?
I think reminding people it makes a difference. I think there is no better way to demonstrate it than living the values by example as opposed to preaching values.
Understand totally with that. And that then bleeds through into how you hire people. And it's also, you can see some really good top performing salespeople that aren't values aligned. And that's actually quite a difficult decision to make of, do I go for the money or do I go for the values?
Oh, it's a major challenge, and you work with high performance business coaches, and it's always employed based on values. But if you have somebody that's writing considerable money, where do you draw the line on? Well, okay, you're very highly profitable for the organisation, but if your behaviour and values aren't aligned, there is that grey space, But
and it's about finding that balance, which I think admirably you guys have done a tremendous job.
Yeah, we try. Hey, none of us are perfect. We're all certainly unique, but I think values and culture. I think it's a top-down strategy.
Yes.
It starts with the business owner and the business leaders, that filters to the management team. And if that group of people are congruent in living those values, then I think that filters down in terms of the rest of the organisation.
No, got it totally. So now wind the clock back 20 years.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there and you're just coming out of your education and saying, I want to be in real estate. If you were in the ear of that person now saying, want to be in real estate, what are some of the lessons and what are some of the suggestions you'd give them to make them into the next Phil Harris?
When I first started in real estate, I really struggled. So my first 6 months, I listed and I sold one property in my first 6 months. I was a very slow starter. So I was 20 years of age at that time. That first property I sold was my grandmother's next door neighbour, she tipped me in. It was another elderly lady who was going to a retirement home, and God bless Nana, she kind of tipped me and said, you've got to give it to my grandson to sell the home. So I got my first listing. So my first 6 months was very, very slow. But what happened for me after that, I heard about a guy in Sydney called John McGrath.
Right.
And at that time, and John still is, the greatest real estate agent Australia's probably ever had. And I started to get myself educated. So I jumped on a plane, I flew over to Sydney, and I started attending some of John's conferences. I started going to his seminars, and I started getting educated very, very quickly. So my next 6 months of real estate, I sold just under 100 homes. I went from doing one sale in 6 months to selling, and I was working for Ray White back in those days when I first started. So I went from very unsuccessful, on the verge of getting out, to doing a large number of transactions.
So if you take that as a lesson though, for any budding entrepreneur or any budding real estate agent or even sales professional, you went out and sourced a professional coach. It wasn't one-on-one, but you found out who the best was and you effectively started replicating a lot of the stuff that they did. 100%.
And so the lesson that I learned, and it's that analogy of standing on the shoulders of great ones, which is for people, for most 99% of people probably are going to listen to this, the reality is whatever it is, the craft that you're doing, there's somebody out there who's already done it, and it's more than likely already done it far better than you and I will ever do, which means you actually don't have to reinvent the wheel. So it staggers me that why would you go into something completely blindly, trying to figure stuff out, versus go and find out who's the best on planet Earth at the chosen profession of what you're wanting to pursue, find out what they do on a daily basis, minute by minute, and why not just bring that back and replicate that? And that's what I did, and it was literally kind of lightning bolt moment for me where things change very quickly. So looking back, the lessons for me when I look at that, number one is I would definitely get a great mentor. So who's somebody who's in the position of where I'm aspiring to be? I would go and meet with that person, go and put a plan in place, get myself educated rather than just trying to fumble my way through it.
Understand.
Yeah.
And it's obviously been successful for you, but you said your first 6 months was pretty tough.
Yeah.
How do you dig deep with your resilience? How do you keep yourself motivated when times are tough?
Well, it's probably two sides to that. I think that when you're 20 years of age and you haven't finished school and you're uneducated and you don't have a whole lot else going for you, as much as it was tough, I didn't really have anything else going. So so there was no kind of downside, It's like, well, what am I going to do? I can go and coach 10-year-old kids out, hit a ball over a net. So it was disappointing. It was tough, but I have far more commitments these days in terms of when the going gets tough, and I've had plenty of tough experiences throughout the course of Harris. But I think the big things for me, we spoke about it before. I'm a values driven person. I'm a very strong goal setter. In terms of it, I think resilience. I mean, resilience is a great topic. I really enjoy it because I don't think resilience is a great skill that too many people really possess or work on.
Yeah.
You know?
Or actually acknowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think there's this perception now, based on social media feeds, based on what you see, there's this perception as if a good life is not having to deal with any challenges. Mm-hmm. But we've had, people see the external side of Harris Real Estate. The reality is we've had some tremendous challenges on the inside of our organisation, as you know. But I've realised that those challenges are part of it. Yes. And resilience is a muscle, and I figure when I'm going through good times and I'm not dealing with challenges, that's a result of the hard work that's been done in the past. But I know that everything comes in seasons, and while I'm in good times, and it's not thinking negatively, but it's being prepared to know that there will always be challenges in your life. So I think if you've got a mindset or a blueprint on life that I'm only going to enjoy my life when it's all going well and it's all going rosy, I think you're very much setting yourself up for failure. The reality is, I think true mastery is how can you be stable and enjoy yourself and understand that good things come and go, challenging times come and go, but how can you maintain kind of that consistency of happiness and joy the whole way through it? And that's been a journey for me.
You're right, and I look at the social media extravaganza, and I think you see the highlights of people's lives and you see the lowlights of people's lives, but it's not real. So people sit there and get depressed, anxious, upset because their best friend or their friends are always on holiday, but they're not actually seeing all the hard yards they've got to get to go on holiday. So they just see snapshots of good or snapshots of bad. And I think it's a very interesting place of how do we now educate ourselves with social media to say it's good for a purpose, it's not good for everything from there. But it's a very interesting trait. So the 3 rules that Phil Harris lives by every day, what would those be? And actually, if Jen was here, what would she say that you would live by?
My wife. My 3 rules are, first and foremost, get up early. So I'm an early riser. So I'm get up early and I have a morning routine that I run through every single morning. So I'm out of bed normally just after 4:30 sometime, and I start my day with reading and journaling and exercise. So I get myself into a really, it comes back to talking about resilience. How do you become a resilient person? Is resilient people have good consistency in their life. So I know, irrespective of whatever's happening in my life, I have plenty of times where I wake up and the alarm clock goes off and I don't want to get up. And I might not have had a great night's sleep, or I might be tired, but when I have a routine that I run through when I first get up in the morning, at the end of that 1 hour process, I'm actually feeling pretty good. So that would be probably number 1 is get up early and go hard, morning routine. Number 2 for me is I'm probably quite a structured person, so I like to know what I want to achieve for that day. Less a to-do list, but what are the big outcomes that can really move the needle in terms of getting me closer to where I want to be. So we're always working towards big goals for our quarter. It might be a quarterly, half yearly, annual, or our 5-year vision of where we're getting to. So there's your normal day-to-day stuff, which is, call this person back, drop the kids off here or whatever. Less focused on that, but what are the big outcomes that could really move you closer to those bigger goals? And I've normally got 2 or 3 of those that I focus on today. So no matter what happens today, I need to connect with those 2 or 3 things, because that's going to get us closer to where I want this vision to go. And probably the 3rd thing for me is around that leadership space. And leadership to me is ultimately about, influence. So it's about serving and building other people, and that goes for both my business life and my family life. And just looking at the game, am I living my values? Am I being a role model? Am I being a great father, husband, mentor, coach to the people around me? So off the top of my head, there's probably I
think that's great.
3 sort of things I focus on.
3 solid things.
Get up, get organised, know your outcomes, know what you want to achieve, and really live it and be a great role model and leader.
And I think it's fair to say, Phil, you are. And it's something that you consistently work towards. But I think you have influenced and impacted positively so many people in South Australia. So Phil Harris, Managing Director of Harris, and also a customer of Voiteck. thank you so much today for coming in and being part of Voiteck Connect.
Yeah, pleasure. Thank you. Cheers.